What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another video. I've been seeing a lot of people saying they can't get past World 3, World 4, World 5, World 6 in the simulated universe. A lot of people are struggling getting past these universes because they're probably just not as informed as they should be with the build complexity, you know, combat complexity, and just overall being informed. Knowledge is power. That's a saying we've heard in the real world. Well, knowledge is power inside of a lot of these video games as well. If you know exactly how the intricacies of the video game's combat system and build system operate, then you have everything you need to clear these worlds. And that's what we want to go over today. I think I got about 10 reasons. Yeah, we got 10 reasons as to why you may or may not be getting past these universes. And I want to go over those, and I really think they'll add some value so that you guys can clap them cheeks and have no problem progressing through the simulated universes. Also, full disclosure, you're probably going to hear my crazy little 5-month-old daughter in there screaming. She thinks she's a dinosaur, bro. Let it be. Just let it be. Let it be. All right, cool. Let's get it. Okay, so starting off with number 1, poor investment in character builds. So there's a couple of components that go into character builds. We got relics, talents, light cones, and then, of course, your character's level. If these things aren't invested in well enough and you're doing these simulated universes, you're not going to deal any damage. And you're probably going to be squishy on top of not dealing any damage. And that's just not a good thing. And I see a lot of people go wrong. They'll take their characters all the way to level 50, but their relics will be like 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. And that's just not okay. Like, for example, right now, my guy's a physical path. He's rocking increased physical damage by 10%, attack increased by 12%, which is a very solid budget build. And then right here we got increased the wearer's attack by 12% when the wearer's speed reaches 120 or higher, so on and so forth. And then we got a little bit of investment, which, by the way, we got much more room for more investment. One thing I will tell you guys is, like, the HP stat, you can leave that at 0. You should prioritize the gloves because they increase your attack. You should prioritize this because it has crit rate as a main stat, and then you should prioritize this because it has attack or speed as a main stat. But these are the ones you actually want to invest in, especially this. You want to get your crit rate up and you want to get your attack up on your main DPSs, and then down here you want to try and land the elemental associated element with that specific main DPS character. Another thing I want to talk about with poor investment in characters builds is make sure you're allocating your resources towards the right relics before going for something like, oh, let me max out his HP. His HP ain't gonna do no damage, fam. So and not to say that it's not important, but your resources are quite finite in this game, and so making sure they're allocated correctly to the appropriate spots before going to the other resources such as defense and HP and stuff is a very big edge you're gonna have to do some good damage. And one more thing I would like to add on is in Genshin Impact, which I was renowned for being good at mathematics for Genshin Impact. Some of you probably already know this. Defense was a very prevalent factor to the DPS formula, and it was a direct correlation to your level versus the enemy's level. So if you're out here using a level 30 character against a level 50 mob, the defensive shred is going to diminish. When you're the same level as an enemy, it's 50%. I'm pretty sure they're probably using the same mathematical formula. Again, I haven't gotten around to doing it, but there's no way they would change it just to make sense. It's the same company. So they got to have the same mathematical formula in here, but basically being the same level is huge as well. So making sure that your character's at the bare minimum, the same exact level as the content you're going up against, is going to ensure that your damage is doing is doing the most that it possibly can do. So that's another very important investment factor as well. But overall, guys, you got to make sure you're investing in your characters. Let's go ahead and move on to number 2, building characters incorrectly. Prime example right here is going to be Asta. One thing I like about this system is you come over here and they tell you Asta applies buffs to allies to improve the team's combat capacity. She's the path of harmony. She's a buffer. She's not a main DPS. So if you're sitting here trying to turn every single one of your characters into a main DPS, you're setting yourself up for failure because some of them aren't designed to do DPS. You got to make sure they're being built properly. Now, Asta's also very good with breaking shields. How do I know this? Well, I got to experiment with her and learn some little bit about her. So you want to build her to break shields. You don't want to build her to do damage without breaking shields. Furthermore, you also want to build her light cone that's going to also allocate to buffing somebody else. Prime example right here is this free-to-play one I bought from the store in the Forgotten Hall. When the wearer uses their skill, then the next ally takes action. That's taking action, deals 16% increased damage for 1 turn. These things are very important for your main DPSs, that they can utilize these damage bonuses and do a hell of a lot more damage, as opposed to you trying to, I don't know, put something on her that just is not designed to really be that optimal. You know what I mean? And finally, when you're going into this talent tree here, you want to make sure you're investing in talents that are specifically going to make them contribute to their role. Prime example, I wouldn't do this actually, because you want to look at next level and see what's the scaling looking like. This is only going up 1 speed. She already gives 37, so that's a pretty bad example there. But what I am going to do is I'm going to invest in this one as much as possible, because that is going to increase the amount of attack given to the rest of my party. That's 9.1%, and if I invest in it again, it goes to 9.8%, and that's times 5. So yeah, make sure you're investing in them in the appropriate areas. She's not designed to deal damage, so I'm not going to come over here and max out her basic attack. I think basic attack is one of the most worthless things you could add on like maybe 85% of the characters in here. So make sure you're using your resources appropriately too, because you can mess up and end up allocating them, well, not mess up, but you're allocating them towards things for a character that's not really designed to deal damage, and again, that's a waste of resources. Now I'll give you a clear-cut example of my boy Dan Hang. He has a 5-star light cone, which I got from Herta store. That's literally amazing. It's best in slot for him. And then you have the relic, increase wind damage by 10%, increase attack by 12%. Ideally, I'd like to have his whole wind damage set, but we don't have good enough pieces. But I am building my characters appropriately. My healer, increase outgoing healing by 10% at the start of the battle, immediately regenerate 1 skill point. Increase her HP by 12%, which also is reflective of how much healing she is doing. So you want to make sure each character is getting built to do the role they are designed to be on your team to do. You can't put because I'll give you one more example before we move on to the next tip here. If we come over here to all of the artifacts available, you'll see that every single element has a set that says increase its damage by 10%, and it's basically designed to make all elements do more damage. I can easily see a noob going to put each one of these DPS sets on all their characters just because they match that element. And that is one of the worst things you could possibly do. Again, you don't want to put this set on Asta because she's designed to buff. You want to put a supportive set on her so that she could do her job as a supportive character. And that's case in point right there. Do not put DPS sets on every single character just because they're that element, because they're designed to do different things. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next tip. Number 3 says incoherent blessing path. So what I mean by this is arbitrary blessings path with no synergy with carry. What I mean by that is, let's go ahead and come over here. You'll come in here, you'll do a world, and then you just start picking up buffs that you like without any actual linear path to what you're trying to achieve. When you're coming in here and choosing buffs, you should be choosing those buffs based off of who your main DPSs are. For example, y'all, if you saw my Arlon video, I made a path down the destruction path because Arlon himself is a destruction path character. Now you can get creative and put a different path on somebody that's not, you know, associated with the path that they're going down, but it has to make sense with what they are capable of doing. Arlon literally has a skill where he drains his health and does damage. Destruction path has skills that give you damage bonuses based off of how much health is missing. That literally makes sense. It's a very coherent, synergistic build. So when you're going down these paths, you have to make sure, one, first and foremost, choose a path that you're going to get at least 6 buffs from, because that path is going to give you an ultimate for that path that is going to be very valuable to progressing through the universe. If you're literally going remembrance, then make sure you get at least 6 remembrance buffs, because what happens is you unlock the path's ultimate at the 3rd remembrance buff, and you enhance that ultimate at the 6th remembrance buff. So make sure you choose a path, right? I'm gonna go this path, and I'm gonna go this path because my character is gonna need this, this, and that. But you can't just come in here and just start choosing random buffs, and then you don't even have 6 buffs of a specific path. That's just a horrible thing to do, and you're gonna do no damage. You're gonna be going to the boss and he's gonna clap your cheeks. So make sure your path synergy is coherent. So just to elaborate a little bit further, when we look at this, every single path has their own buffs. If you're going down the universe, the simulated world that you're in, and you just pick a buff from preservation, pick a buff from remembrance, pick a buff of nihility, pick a buff of abundance, pick a buff of the hunt. The next thing you know, you have 17 buffs belonging to 8 different blessings paths. No synergy whatsoever. You're gonna be doing awful damage because there's, like I said, there's no linear coherence to what you just did. Now, if you're somebody who's saying like, I'm running a hunt path character, I'm gonna go 9 hunt path or 10 hunt path blessings, and then choose some other blessings from the other paths to like make up for whatever the hunt path is not offering. That makes so much more sense, and you're gonna deal way much more damage, have a much easier time clearing that world because it actually is designed to be used that way. Hopefully that makes sense. Let's go ahead and move on to number 4, poor team synergy. So I'll give a quick example here. This is the end game of Honkai Star Rail. Because it's the end game, it's going to be the toughest content that is going to force you to play the game at its highest skill level, if that makes sense. So unfortunately, for the people who just like to play characters because they like how the characters look, this is not the game mode where you can do that, because you're not gonna. It's not designed to be that way. You can do it outside of these modes, but if you try to do that in here, you're just going to get your butt handed to you. So I can't go and say, oh, let me do a quick setup real quick. You know what, man? I like Dan Hang. I like Natasha because she's fine. I like this character here because she looks cool. And I like this character here because they look cool. Yeah, this is the team I'm going to use. I like them. They all look cool. They're my favorite characters. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get punished because this person drains a hell of a lot of skills. This person uses a lot of skill points. This person uses skill points, and she's gonna have to use a skill point eventually. There's no synergy in this team whatsoever. So that's a main DPS, and main DPS. That's way too many main DPSs. You can't, it's not gonna happen, bro. You're gonna literally get clapped. The best thing you could do, a rule of thumb, a 1 DPS or 2, have a main DPS, a supportive main DPS who's also capable of doing some AoE, 1 tank or shielder, and 1 supportive character. A clear-cut example, just pick let's say Su Shang. She's the one I want to use as my main DPS. To build around her, that's my main DPS. Let's pick a tank or a healer. It's going to be Gepard or Natasha. Let's go with Natasha. Oh, we got 2 physicals here. Now we probably need another element based off of what we're going up against, but we definitely need a supportive character. That's going to be Asta, or that's going to be Tin Yun. They are going to buff my team, give my team more damage, and also battery my team with Tin Yun. That's a good little synergistic option. Finally, we need some AoE. If we look at this, she does no AoE, she does no AoE, and she damn sure doesn't do no AoE. So we need an AoE character. Boom, let's add her in there. There you go. That's a good example of building good team synergy. They're filling out for all the weaknesses that the other characters may or may not have. We got our main DPS, we got our AoE character, our supportive character, and our healer. I'm not saying that's a god tier team, but that is what I mean by it actually has team synergy. We actually have people who are doing their roles appropriately. Now, a weakness I can see right off rip is that there's only 2 elements. So if we go up against a scenario where the monsters aren't weak to physical or lightning, I'm gonna have a very rough time because their elements their shields are not gonna be getting broken at all, which is gonna set me up for a nightmare scenario. But that's what I mean by have good team synergy. Now, moving on to number 5, ability tree is underfarmed. Yes, we definitely want to go over that. It's a very important thing to talk about. This is the ability tree right here. If you're not spamming the simulated universe, bro, you could very well be up here. And let me tell you, this ability tree has some very valuable abilities that you can carry on with you permanently as you're going through the simulated universe. And the way you unlock these abilities is literally just by doing the simulated universe. You don't even have to clear the path you're on. You just have to continuously grind it. You're going to get this currency right here, which allows you to contribute to this. But one of the most valuable buffs I just picked up myself, and I'm still working my way through it too, guys. Look at that. That's a lot of stuff to get through. But one of the most valuable buffs I picked up was this bad boy right here. When selecting a blessing in the simulated universe after defeating enemies, you can consume cosmic fragments to reset the blessing for 1 time only. This is massive because you do need a little bit of luck as you're going through the simulated universe. Sometimes you're going to get a hand that just is absolute garbage and has no synergy with what you're doing. So this right here allows you to reroll and get something else, hopefully. And let me tell you, usually it's going to give you something else that you actually need. So this is a very important buff to get, but you got to grind this ability tree out and get all of these useful perks. It's very helpful. Finally, all blessings of Trailblaze effects are enhanced. As soon as you start the simulated universe, it's going to give you 3 options to choose from, and they generally require you to well, one of them requires you to spend 50 cosmic fragments to get a curio. Now, once you enhance this, it's not going to cost anything. You just get the curio for free, and the other 2 options are going to be enhanced as well. That's what they mean by the Trailblaze effects. It's the first 3 options that you get to choose before you go into the universe. They're going to be enhanced, which is a good thing. Again, another valuable thing. But grind this out, and your simulated universe time is going to be a lot more easier as well. Moving on to number 6. Incoherent element synergy. So I did just discuss this with the poor team synergy example. Basically what I'm trying to say is, I'll give a better example here too. If I go into world 5, this is a perfect example. The first thing I do when I'm building a team for a world is I say, what are the popular elements? What is the element of preference? Basically, which one has the most? We got 1 physical, 1 wind, and 1 imagine, I think is what it's called. We got another wind. That's 2 winds now. We can just count it. 1 wind, 2 wind, 3 wind, 4 wind. So wind is a preferred element in this simulated universe. We got 1 physical, 2 physical, 3 physical, 4 physical. Wind and physical is the preferred element of this simulated universe. So without a shadow of a doubt, whatever I do, we're gonna have a wind and a physical character in it. No doubt about it, because everybody is weak to those associated elements. Finally, we got 2 elements to pick. I see 2 ice. All right, well, I'm gonna throw an ice character in there because chances are I'm gonna need them to contribute to shield breaking. Shield breaking is very, very important in this game. It's very prevalent, and if you're not breaking shields, you're gonna set yourself up to just get your ass kicked, basically. So that would be my team. That's how I design it. Make sure the elements are associated with the simulated universe that you're going up against. You can't just, again, choose, I'm gonna play her because I like her, but there's only 2 people that are weak to the quantum element in this scenario right here. Build based off of the bosses and the elite enemies associated weaknesses, okay? Now, let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Number 7 says lack of variety in elemental carries. Now, this one here is a problem I don't expect you to not run into. One, it's a gacha game designed to try to get you to spend money. And if you're playing as a free-to-play character, chances are you might just not have enough resources to build up the a main DPS for every single element, right? But the reason I say lack of variety in elemental carries, there, as you can see already, each simulated universe is gonna have a element of preferred benefit. Right now it's wind and physical, but you might not have a wind character built up. You might have built up Herta, this girl, and I don't know, March 7th and this person, and now you're out of resources. So over time, you're gonna have to have a DPS for each element, because there's gonna come a time where, or there's not gonna come a time, there's literally scenarios that benefit a specific element. That's what I'm trying to, does that make sense? You got to have a main DPS for every single element, because there's going to be a scenario where they excel. So this is the kind of game where right now wind and physical is the simulated world 5 benefit, right? But if we go over here to world 4, it's lightning and fire, I believe. Let's look at this. Yeah, lightning and fire. That's the preferred element of world 4. Let's go ahead and look at world 3. Come over here. Boom. World 3 is going to be lightning, physical, and ice. Look at all that ice. That's a lot of ice. So ice is the preferred element. Yeah, ice is, I remember world 3. Ice is 110% the preferred element of world 3. No doubt about it. This dude summons 2 people who are weak to ice, and you have a nightmare of a time if you don't have an ice character, which is why that 5-star ice guy really goes hard for world 3. But basically, you got to have well invested main DPSs for each associated element, guys, okay? Finally, we got number 8, Missplays. Okay, so this happens, man. This is gonna happen. It's not really something you can really teach. It's just something you have to be aware of. When you're making your moves inside a battle, you make misplays sometimes. Maybe you use an ult too late or too soon, and then the enemy ends up doing something that completely could have been avoided had you used that ult at the right time. Misplays are going to happen. That's probably a reason why you fell in the universe as well. You're making bad plays, and you got to be more, you got to learn from them. But again, there's not really a way for me to give a good example. All I know is you're going to make misplays. I make misplays all the time. This happens in the card universe. This is going to happen in turn-based universe. Misplays happen, man. It's just something you didn't see and you messed up. And then finally, number 10 is going to be tank misplacement. Tank misplacement is something that's important, but not that important just yet, but it is important enough. Basically, let's say you have the fire main protagonist who has a taunt ability that forces every enemy to attack him and only him. If they have adjacent moves can hit up to 3 people. So if I put my if I put my tank right over here in this spot, he's going to be on the far right. So if they do an adjacent move, it's only going to hit him and her because nobody's to the right of him. So make sure your tank is always placed on the corners, and make sure whoever's placed next to your tank isn't your main DPS or a supportive character, but rather maybe somebody who's a little bit more tankier. So the way I would do it, for an example, is I would do something like, let's say Dan Hang, physical pro, no, not physical, my bad. Shu Shang, here's my main DPS with my supportive main DPS. And then I got healer and then tank or taunter. Yeah, that's the way I would do it. And the person next to him is Natasha. If she gets hit and takes damage along with him, it's okay. They're both beefy as hell. They can handle that damage. And that's the final tip I have for you guys, man. I really hope this brought you some value. I think if you apply this, it's going to help you a lot in the simulated universe, truly. Let me know what you think. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip side.